Hey everyone, and welcome to Prune Belly Insiders. If you've been to the channel, you know I've been gone for a while. There was some health problems and problems with school. I had a surgery, but putting that aside, this is where we interview Prune Belly survivors, their parents, siblings, doctors who are knowledgeable in it, to get the word of Prune Belly out there, as not many people know about it. So everybody, please, please welcome my guest today, Caleb Davy.
Hey everyone,
How are you today?
I'm all right. I can't complain. I had a pretty good day today. How was your day?
It was pretty good. I just started going back to college, so very stressful, but good.
So
So
you had to go where?
college. I just
Ah,
started. I,
oh,
I just started going back to college.
oh wow, what university?
Lancaster Bible College.
Nice, nice. I just graduated from George Mason last month.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
So, how old are you again?
I am 23 years of age.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So, why don't we just start at the beginning of when did your parents find out you had prune belly, and how did this kind of come about? Like, what's your story with this?
So essentially, I was born on September 15th, 2001. So I was basically diagnosed at birth. Um, and my parents found out, when I was born. And so yeah, I've been dealing with it ever since I was a wee baby.
That must be very stressful dealing with prune belly.
For them, yeah. For me, um, I don't know, because I was born with it, so I don't really,
Right, we
yeah,
don't see it as a roadblock, we just see it as part of life
yeah. It's
after a while.
part of who I am. Yeah, exactly.
So, have you had many surgeries?
Oh, I've had a ton. Um, the one concerning prune belly though is I had a tummy tuck. Is to where I think it's where they kind of, I want to say shrink your stomach. I know what it does and I know the effects of it. Um, and I know that it has a low survival rate. So essentially, I needed this surgery if I was going to. Hold on, give me 1 second.
Yep,
All right, sorry about that. So yeah,
no problem.
uh, low survival rate, and if I didn't get the surgery, it was not looking good for me. So, life-saving surgery.
Okay, and how old were you when you had that?
I think I was about a couple months old.
Very similar to my story, and from what I hear, a lot of prune bellies in terms of
Yeah, if you don't
I like.
mind me asking, what's your story?
Um, well, if you want to know my prune belly story, I've had probably in the vicinity of anywhere from 20 to 40 surgeries, probably.
Yeah, I
It's
have
been
about that number.
Right. It's been very, very difficult dealing with prune belly, but in
Right.
terms of my religious story, if you want to get into that, I started out Christian. My father went to a Christian school, grew up in the church,
Okay.
and I really started getting into it around 12 years old, I would say.
Okay.
And I was just so dedicated and wanted to learn so much that it just kind of overtook me, and I started studying the Bible and studying, talking to my pastor and other people. At 16, I had a surgery that kind of, I'd like to say, took my life away to a degree for a numerous amount of years. So from there, I kind of strayed with my faith, and then I've some miracles happened and surgeries that kind of brought me back to God to make me
Yeah,
more dedicated
God
now.
is always faithful. Even when run faithful, he's always faithful. I'm a Christian too, so I know what that's like, man.
That's amazing. So, why don't you tell me how your faith has contributed to your view of life and of Prune Belly?
So, like they tell us in church, just give it to God. And that's what faith is all about. For me, it's giving it to God, not worrying about it, understanding what the problem is, but understanding that, hey, We serve a God that loves us. We serve a God that provides for us. We serve a God that fights for us. So, in terms of, Prune Belly, this was something that God kind of handled right away, and I've been blessed um, to kind of view myself lovingly as God sees me because I don't really see my disabilities as obstacles. I just see them as a part of me. I don't let them stop me from, doing what I want to do, doing what I need to do. So yes, God has done so much for me in my life, and I'm thankful for him each and every day. So yeah.
It it's funny that you mentioned that about you've never seen yourself as disabled, or you've never seen yourself in that way, I should say. Because when I started college, I actually did a paper on this,
Oh yeah.
on disability. And my favorite phrase from the paper, I didn't quote, I actually came up with this, was the key word in disabled is abled, and there's always something someone can share. What that's
Right.
a value to community and to everybody else.
Those are some pretty wise words, man. I'm a writer myself, so I write I write nonfiction and sci-fi fantasy, and on the nonfiction side, I kind of talk about not prune belly, but I'm also a um chronic kidney disease survivor. So I talk about that a lot, my experience with dialysis and how that's been for me and what anxiety has to do with that and things of that nature. But yeah, that's awesome, man.
So, how do you deal with your anxiety other than through Christ?
Well, Christ is my main avenue, but
Right.
um my other avenue, I guess, is just thinking logically, what is today's reality right now? What is true right now? When I was going in the early years of, my recent transplant, I got my second kidney transplant, January 16th, 2020. My first transplant was in 2004, via my mom. My mom donated her kidney to me, and that's how I got my first kidney. But my second kidney transplant um, was from 2020, right? And up until that point, I've been dealing with dialysis for about 9 years or 12 years in total, but not 9 years from the I think it was 2011 to 2020 period. Um, and during that time, that early time where I had my transplant, I had this anxiety that, this miracle, right, wasn't real, and that I was because when you're on dialysis for so long, you kind of get used to, rejection and bad news. And, 9 years is a while to be on such a, it's a life-saving treatment, but it's also a life-taking treatment. Um, you've mentioned that like your surgery kind of lost your life, kind of took your life from you. Well, I would like to say that dialysis kind of took my life away from me, or I had no agency growing up. And I had dialysis all throughout my childhood. And I can remember, um, I can remember the countless sessions to where I would get off sick. I seized out twice on dialysis at one point. Um, and yeah, that's no fun. So best believe I remember a lot about dialysis, and I remember my early years of getting that transplant is that I never want to return to that life. Right.
Uh,
I never want to return to dialysis. But anxiety would be like, hey, you're not doing enough. And if you're not doing enough, you're gonna be right back there. You know what I mean? This kidney, it's not gonna last forever. Just look at your last one, right? And for a while there was no way to stop it because like I couldn't confirm or deny that. I was given the rules of I had to drink a lot, I had to, eat right, I had to, take my meds on time, and the anxiety would come from I would just be a little late on my meds, or I didn't drink enough that day, and my mind would just spiral. What if I'm back on dialysis, and what if I never get another one, right? So that was really tough, and especially, and I wrote about this too. I can send you my narrative account that I wrote about this, but there was
yeah, I would
one time
love that.
Yeah, there was one time to where my creatinine was high, right? Are you aware of what creatinine is?
Yeah, I actually have kidney disease as well. I've also had two transplants.
Oh, nice. Well, that's cool. Well, so you know how
Yeah,
important
I
creatinine.
don't know dialysis. I was lucky enough to kind of get saved from that part of it,
Oh yeah,
but
that's
I've
wonderful.
had kidney transplant. I've gone through the process. I
Yeah,
know about.
yeah. So, of course, you know about creatinine, right? And
Right,
how important it is to keep that number as low as possible. Um,
right,
so one time I was in college, and I came back from an appointment, right? Just daily checkup, and I was just chilling in my dorm room, playing some games, and I get a call from my doctor saying, "Hey, your creatinine is high. We're concerned about it, so we're gonna need you to come in to the hospital." And this is this was around like 2021, so I had my kidney for about 1 year at this point. So mentally, I'm like, oh my goodness, I knew it. I knew it. I knew that this kidney wasn't gonna last long. It was only a matter of time. And my mind immediately jumped to dialysis, right? Because
yeah,
you don't think logically when you're spiraling out like that. So
right,
my mind immediately jumped to dialysis and how I was gonna have to go through that again. And I had to be admitted to the hospital and monitored for a couple days. So yeah, my life was put on hold, right?
right,
Um, and so yeah, it's experiences like that 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 kept me, jumpy and alert. But this is in a bad way, not like being diligent, but like worrying about the possible outcomes, right? And so obviously I went to therapy about this, and you know, my therapist was like, well, what's true? What was true at that moment, right? You were thinking
right,
dialysis, but what did she actually say? Did she say dialysis, or did she say you just had to come in to get checked out,
right,
right?
right,
Um, so it's things like that to where I kind of have to remember, when I see something off, whether it's a UTI or a high number, right? I just have to remember, what is actually being said to me versus what I made up in my mind that's freaking me out. So, and I for a while I kept a list, right? I literally wrote, today's reality, and I wrote facts, right? That I knew for sure, right? And sometimes when things go wrong, things have been really good recently, so I haven't really had to go back to it. But when things did go wrong, I look back, I change it, right? Update it
right.
according to the situation, and I kind of remember it, and that kind of keeps me calm and grounded. So yeah, that's
So,
kind of the method.
yeah. So I have a quick thought and then three questions about what you've said so far, if
Okay,
that's okay.
sure, yeah, yeah,
So the quick thought is I absolutely love how you said you're a writer. I absolutely love reading. I'd love to hear what you've written. Um, I'm actually planning on eventually putting two books out as well on my
yeah.
life, one on my religious side, one on my physical health side.
Same thing, same thing. It's gonna be combined in a memoir for me, but that's great. Two books.
Right. So a couple questions. You said during dialysis you seized out twice.
Yeah,
For people who may not know what you're talking about, and I've never had dialysis, so I don't even know what you're talking about, to be honest.
right.
What do you mean by seized out?
So by seized out, I mean I quite literally had a seizure on the machine.
Ah,
Yeah. So usually when dialysis, so do you know how dialysis works, or do I need to educate?
yeah, I know how it works.
Okay, so yeah. So when you get on and off dialysis, it cleans your blood. For people who don't know, it cleans your blood. Your blood goes into the machine. It filters out the toxin stuff and it goes back in. It basically does the work of your kidneys. And when you're on dialysis, usually the case is you can't pee. So on dialysis, right, when you're on for 4 hours a day, 3 times a week, um, it takes fluid from you at like a rapid rate, you know?
Yeah,
So um it's just sometimes when you get up, right, you kind of feel that drain, right? Because
right,
it's
right,
taking blood from you, right? So, and yeah, it's putting it back, but it's still taking like copious amounts of blood, right, at a
right,
rate. So, um, this one time I stood up, right? And I felt lightheaded, right? And they were gonna take my weight. They took my blood pressure. My blood pressure was a little low, right? But by that point, I was already starting to feel the effects, right? So I stood up, right? I'm like, whoa, I gotta sit back down, right?
Right,
And from my perspective, right, I closed my eyes for a second, right? It felt like minutes for me. Like I just closed my like I thought I just needed to like rest for a minute, right?
right,
But when I came to, right, I woke up in the emergency room and I'm just like, What happened?" And they're like, "Oh, you had a seizure. Yeah, you had a seizure
right,
because the machine is so effective. It did too good of a job, clearing out my system. And so sometimes the body kind of needs to catch up, and my body couldn't catch up in time, so I seized. Um, and the first time though, it was scarier, right? Because I actually lost like my vision, right? Coming
oh wow,
temporarily off the machine. Yeah. So, this first time, same scenario, right? I stood up, felt lightheaded, but this time, right? Like I was just dazed, right? And like my eyes were open, but I couldn't see anything, right? So
right,
I was like screaming for help. I was going, Dad, Dad, Dad. Like I was calling like my mom or dad, but they weren't there, right? The doctors were there. So and I was like younger at this point. I was like maybe 16 probably when this first
wow,
happened. So yeah, so as a 16-year-old, I'm just freaking out because like I can't see, right? Um, and they had to sit me down, give me some extra saline mixed with antibiotics to like, you know,
right.
calm my body down. But yeah, that's what ha can happen on dialysis. I don't know if this happened to anybody else, but I wouldn't put it past that could happen because dialysis is a very effective, um, powerful medical machine. So yeah.
Right. S- So, for people who don't know, what does dialysis actually feel like?
So I'd imagine like it's getting a IV. It's like an IV for 3 hours, right?
Uh,
Um, there are two types of ports, right? You can get either a fistula, and that's like more akin to the IV, or you can get a catheter, and that's like in your chest, right?
right,
And so, in terms of what it feels like, the only really feeling you get from it is when you have to get stuck for the fistula, right? Where they
yeah,
have to find a vein and stick you. So fistulas are just like regular blood draws or IVs, to where they just stick you once and they flush it and you feel it and that. But catheters are a lot more intimate, to where it has to be changed frequently to avoid infection. So for that, right? When you get the catheter put in, it's usually a surgery, right? So you go into surgery, you get your catheter put in, and it's just like this port in your chest, right?
yeah,
And it's like a yeah, it's a port. So you feel the plastic, in your chest, and you
yeah,
kind of the 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 open like incision area, I guess, to where it's put in, right? So that's just like a plugged hole. And when they clean it, right, they can clean it with either iodine or just alcohol, right? And because the wound is semi-open, right? Because the
hmm,
catheter is sticking out of you. It's not really an implant to where, it's in your body and yeah, it's sticking out, right? So when you clean it, you kind of feel that, right? And it's painful sometimes because sometimes crust gets on it because it scabs up, it tries to scab up, and they got to keep it fresh, so you got to clean it and stuff like that. um and yeah, those are the only parts you feel, right? On the machine you don't really feel anything, right? You just
right.
the
So,
whole thing.
so it sounds like it's similar almost to like a PIC line or a central line.
Right, exactly. And
S-
so I don't
s-
know if I'm I mentioned this, but I was on di peritoneal dialysis, right? And peritoneal dialysis is an alternative dialysis to where it's home dialysis, right? So you can do dialysis at home too. Peritoneal dialysis is where the port is in your stomach, right?
Oh,
Um, yeah, so peritoneal dialysis, chemo deals with the blood, right? Peritoneal dialysis deals directly with the fluid in the stomach, right? And that right there, it's kind of a trade-off, right? Because
right,
um hemodialysis, you go in 3 times a week, you get around the clock care, you're in the form of doctors, right? And when you get an
right,
infection, it's you can easier it's easier to take care of because doctors are right there, that the meds are right there. Peritoneal dialysis, it's a lot more freeing. I say freeing because the only free part about it is that you don't have to go into the hospital
right,
as much, right? Because you still got to go in for checkups, but you don't have to go as much. Um, but the trade-off is that when it gets infected, it's bad. It's it's really, really bad. They have a name for the infection. It's called peritonitis, right?
yeah,
It is where your peritonitis in your stomach gets really, really, really inflamed. And like it's like a really, really it's a really bad cramp. But instead of like that muscle cramp, it's like a burning, right?
right.
It's a really, really intense burning and it's really, really intense flame. And I remember getting those. I got those at least like 3 times while on the while on peritoneal dialysis.
Well,
And
from the pick line I used to have in, because I used to have it for pain medicine, I
yeah,
actually got sepsis infection 3 times off of
ah,
that. It actually got to a point where the doctors had told me they don't know if they can give me anything if it happens again,
yeah,
and I
same
had to
thing.
get the pick line removed because of that.
Yeah, in 2016, right, I had a peritonitis infection. It was so bad, and it was multiple symptoms all at once because like I wasn't doing well mentally either, right? I
Right.
was severely sleep deprived. I had an infection, right? And cherry on top, I was heartbroken at the time. So,
Why
um,
were you heartbroken? Just out of curiosity.
just like I was in high school, so just high school,
Yeah, yeah,
like high school drama stuff. In high
yeah,
school,
that makes sense.
like that kind of stuff feels like the end of the world. But.
Right.
But yeah, no, yeah, 2016, it was like really, really bad, and I remember it so vividly. That's like when I mentioned trauma to people, that event comes up. I just know it is like 2016, right? I don't remember the month, I don't remember the dates. It's just the year 2016 will always
That
be,
was a big year for me.
yeah, big, yeah, yeah, yeah. So, um, I remember hearing this from my mom like later when I got out, um, to where my mom asked a doctor that's been with me since birth, taking care of me since birth, Children's Hospital. And my mom always asks the question, is he gonna make it? Right? And my mom and the doctor's like, I honestly don't know. I honestly can't tell you.
Yeah.
Right?
You
Um,
said Children's Hospital. Can I ask which one?
it's the one, it's Children's National Hospital,
Oh,
the
okay.
the one in DC.
Oh,
Um,
I went to the one in Philadelphia.
I've been to that one as well because when I was searching for a kidney, right? You just go to different hospitals just to prepare,
Right,
put
right.
things in place to where like, hey, if you find one here, we'll go there. If you find one here, we'll go there. Luckily I found mine at Children's, I think, so I didn't really have to go anywhere. But
That's good.
I remember going to CHOP a lot. Um, so yeah, no, peritonitis is no fun. Um, and I got a really bad infection. And I think the last one was the worst one. This was in 2016. So they're like, all right, no more, like the risk far outweigh the benefits. So you're just gonna stay on chemo. Um, and so yeah, no. Yeah,
So you're obviously a knowledgeable guy.
I would think
So
so, yeah.
what what did and any career or major you would have went in, you obviously would be successful. But just out of curiosity, what career are you looking for and what did you major in college?
So It's funny you asked that. I'm actually in the process of searching for a job right now. Um, I majored in creative writing. I got my bachelor's degree in creative writing. My concentration was fiction writing. Um, but I do nonfiction as well, so it's not like I don't it's not like I don't know how to nonfiction write. Um,
Right.
I
And I'd
I
love to read your stories.
oh yeah, no, I'm welcome to share them. Um, but yeah, so career wise, I'm kind of trying to continue that path. In college, my big thing was the student magazine and student newspaper, right?
Yeah.
So I got an on-campus job working for them um for a good 2 years out of the four. Um I actually was editor in chief of the publication. Um yeah, I was editor in chief of the student media publication. So the
That's
publication I
great.
ran, yeah, it's real cool. The publication I ran is called The Forge, and that one is exclusively like your sci-fi, your fantasy, stuff like that,
Yeah.
your fiction stuff.
Right.
Um and so yeah, I did that for 2 years, and I love the routine. I love the process of, just um, working with editors and designers and trying to get the issue out there. It was stressful at times, but um, it was all worth it. So as a career, I wanna do stuff like that. I want to continue that path because
Yeah.
I know that process very, very well. And so I think it would be smooth if I just found some place to just continue that journey. But I'm not gonna lock myself down to that because a lot of writers find themselves doing all sorts of things, right?
Right.
I think
Right.
the main thing that I want to do is make money doing something, and then build that process of income via writing books, right?
Right.
So I can
Right.
have like two steady sources of income. So I'm really open to anything at this point. I'd say the most recent job I applied for, since we're on the topic of hospitals, I applied to work in the public relations or marketing department of Children's Hospital, right? Because
Right.
I know someone there, right? Um, and the woman I know, I went to middle school and high school with her son, so we're like really, really close.
Right.
Yeah, they're like family to me. So I gave her a call the other day and said, "Hey, I'm searching for a job. Do you know anybody that can, you know, get me into, marketing or public relations?" And she's like, "Yeah, yeah, I can talk to some people. Just send me your resume, send me a well-written email, and send me a sample, and we'll see where it goes." So I'm waiting on that. But yeah, as far as my day-to-day stuff goes, I hop on LinkedIn and search for jobs. But yeah, I'm really open to do anything, but the the dream is publishing books.
Yeah. So I'm sorry I'm jumping around with some of my questions here. It's just I find your story so interesting.
Yeah, it's completely fine. It happens.
But going to your faith again.
Hmm.
Now, I know you said you've struggled with anxiety and I'm assuming depression and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Was there ever a time and I'll admit I've had this, where Satan tries to tell you maybe this isn't God's plan for you, or that you can't do it, or that Christ doesn't care about you anymore because obviously he left you like this?
Yeah,
Had
all
those
the
thoughts
time.
ever come into your mind?
Yeah, yeah, all the time. They still come even today, right?
Same.
Yeah, Satan never takes a break. So but during my wait for a kidney was really bad, right? Because I was getting thoughts like this is my life now. Like I'm going to
Yeah.
live and I'm going to die on dialysis. Because time kind of slows when you're on dialysis, right? Days can feel like months and months can feel like years, right? Granted,
Yeah.
9 years was a long time, but compared to like some other people, right? I knew a guy on hemodialysis. His name was Marquez, right? And we
Right.
were like best friends in the unit, right? And he made each day I went bearable because I got to be a kid, right? I didn't have to
Right.
worry about the machines and the tubes and all that. I could just be a kid, and I had a friend who I can be a kid with, right? And we'd make a game out of it. Who would be off the machine first, and they had this Xbox 360 in the unit, and we'd play multiplayer like that, right? And for a while, I was like back to my normal self, not letting my, circumstances, get in the way of, thinking and get in the way of life. But one day I came in and he wasn't there. And as like a 12-year-old kid, he was a bit older than me. He was like 17, 16. But a friend's a friend, right? So
Right. Right.
um yeah, one day I came in and he wasn't there. And in my unit specifically, they had this unspoken rule to where if somebody got a kidney, right, nobody would talk about it for the
Oh,
sake of the patients and feeling bad and for the sake of just privacy, right?
right.
And so yeah, no, I he stopped showing up, right?
Right.
And as a kid, you're like, it's like missing your friend at school, right? But this time, imagine like they changed schools, so it was kind of like that. So to where I was like looking for him, and like I didn't have any other friends, so he was like my one and only friend in dialysis, right?
Right.
And so I kept asking about him, and like one day, they closed the curtain and they finally told me, hey, Marquez got a kidney, right?
Right.
And I was told that in my year two of waiting, he was in his year nine, right?
Ooh.
So, um, yeah, and so I was told that, and they heavily hammered home on the fact that hey, you should be happy for your friend, right? Because he got to live a better life, but you're a kid, right? And how kids work is that like when their friends get something, they want that thing too, right?
Well, can I just interject for a second?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
It's not even that when your friend gets something, you want something too. Sometimes it's more of a, well, why did he get it? And I'm still suffering. I'm
Exactly,
still the
right?
one going through this. It's not
Yeah, that,
necessarily,
that was
he
my
has it, I want it. It's
right.
why did God give him this, but not me?
Exactly right. And that was my next thought. Well, why do I have to, wait by myself, let alone, right?
Right. Right.
Um, and so yeah, they're trying to like, force this force positivity on me, And like
Yeah.
I was happy for him, right? But deep down I was like, well, he left you, right? So you're by yourself, right? And at that point I was like, well, maybe God left me, maybe,
Amen.
yeah,
I've
maybe,
felt that way too.
yeah, maybe, God was with this other kid, right? And
Yeah.
he kind of left me behind. And so, and I was like 12 then, right? So I think if I could share this, I think that was the first time I thought about suicide.
Yeah. And by the way, you can share anything you want. I want this to be
Yeah.
an open forum because
Yeah.
suppressing the truth or just telling the positives isn't going to help anybody, and it's definitely not going to help raise awareness.
Amen. Amen. Right. So yeah, I thought about suicide for the first time when I was 12. And
Yeah.
I'll never forget it, because I didn't go through with it, obviously, and I didn't, plan anything, right?
Right.
Not, I just didn't want to be here anymore, right?
Exactly.
And so when I told my dad this, that was probably like my first time seeing my dad cry, right? And so obviously they took this seriously, very seriously, right? So they put me in the children's psych ward for a while, right?
How was that
And
experience?
worse because I was more alone, right? Um and I find it very fascinating that you said, you can't hide the negatives because that's all we did in the psych ward, right? And nobody was allowed to talk about anything negative. Nobody was allowed to talk about why they were there. Nobody was able to like you couldn't see your family, right? And it was the whole process to like see your family and friends, but like there were no phones, right? So I couldn't call my mom or dad. So um very, very lonely point. Um and I was forced to just like be alone, be by myself. And
Right,
um yeah, just and as a kid, right, you kind of don't like not taking things seriously is the double-edged sword because you know, I didn't really understand what I said. Like I understood what I said, but I didn't understand like the gravity of what I said, right? Like I meant what I said in the moment, right? I meant
right,
saying I didn't want to be there because I really didn't want to be here in this moment in this life, but I didn't really think about anybody else, right?
right.
Um,
It was
so
more like a why me, always me,
yeah,
trying
yeah,
to push it down, suppress it,
yeah,
don't talk about it type thing.
yeah. I didn't really think about anybody else, right?
Right,
Um, and so I was talking with the doctors and they asked me all kinds of questions, like, well, did you have a plan and did you try it? And I'm like, no. Like, of course I didn't try it. I was just upset, right? I mean,
right,
I thought about a plan a little bit, but I never carried it out. Like I thought that, there was this knife in the drawer and that if I just, stuck it, it'd be over, right? Um,
exactly,
so but that's how far I just thought about it, right?
exactly,
I literally just thought about the knife, right? I didn't think about where, I didn't think about how, I didn't, and I was a kid, so I didn't really know what suicide was. I didn't even use the word,
exactly,
I didn't even use the word suicide. I just said I didn't want to be here anymore, right? Um,
right,
so, but adults took that another way, right? And so
right, right.
they yeah, they locked me up and they made sure I was good. And so when I got out, things kind of just resumed as normal. Obviously somebody like talked to me. Like they got me like a talk therapist to where I can like, talk about, things. Um, and so yeah, but I never talked about it, like the incident ever again. I just moved on. Um, but it was only for like a little bit, so I that didn't really like continue. Yeah. But yeah, so it's in moments like those to where like Satan and the devil were just like, yeah, just that like and this he convinced me like it was the best course of action, right? And the
Yeah,
scary thing was it made sense, right? Um yeah, I know it was a lie, but it made sense at the time, Um
exactly,
because he said, hey, well, if you do it, you don't have to go to dialysis anymore, right? And like you don't have to like no more tubes, no more dialysis, no more limiting drinking, right? Um and so yeah, it made sense, right? But again, the devil's a liar, right? So he doesn't tell you everything, right? He just
right,
tells you what you want to hear in the moment. So it was only later to where, I realized that, hey, there are other people running this race with you, right? And the
right.
way that,
And it's Jesus running the race with you
right,
too.
exactly, exactly. And we have to finish the race, as the good book says. We run the race so that when we see heaven one day, right? And
Right.
that's what it's all about. It's running the race. Um,
Well, on the risk of sounding absolutely crazy here,
Hmm.
I actually truly believe I had an out-of-body experience.
That's
It was
not
a
crazy, man.
it was a year after the surgery,
Hmm.
and my pastor had passed away the year after. So I was in the hospital during this one summer. They're running all these tests, trying to figure out what's wrong. And the doctor mentions, we're going to try this hypnosis on you to try to help you calm down and take some of the depression and anxiety away. And instead of it being hypnosis, it was more like my spirit lifted out of my body into heaven. And I was
Yeah,
actually in heaven talking with my pastor.
nice.
And it's funny that you mentioned that Satan wants to tell us that there's no purpose, that it doesn't matter right now, and that the best thing here is just to ultimately take your life. But when
Yeah,
I had the out of body experience, my pastor, and I felt the love of God too, had told me that I was here for a reason and that it was going to be a lot of suffering, but in the end, it would bring a just and good reward for the kingdom of God.
exactly, exactly.
And that's actually not long after that is when I started this channel to get
Nice,
this awareness out there.
nice. Yeah, and I think the thing about the depression part, right, is that I refused medication. Like
Me too.
I refused, and it wasn't like, because of Christianity. Like, it's just like no, like morally, I just couldn't accept it. Like ethically, I couldn't accept it because to
I'm the
me,
same way.
to me, it was just like, here is a child suffering with a problem, and your solution is to feed him more pills.
Exactly.
Um,
Which have serious side effects in itself.
which had more side effects, and the pills, teach you codependency, right? Um, so that's why I'd rather talk to people about it. Because humans are social creatures. So
Right. I mean, it's even in Genesis when God said it's not good for man to be alone, and
alone,
that's why he
exactly.
created Eve.
Right. So yeah, I always prefer talking out my problems, whether it's through prayer or, just venting to a friend over pills. Um,
I've always been that way and still am that way, to be
I
honest
mean,
with
yeah,
you.
I still am that way, right? I
Right.
refuse to take any
Uh,
sort of, yeah, I take enough meds
yeah.
as it is. So yeah,
Yeah, I can't even tell you how many meds I'm on, but
I'm on so
that
many, man. I'm on so many.
now, just out of curiosity, do you take them one at a time, or did you learn through the years how to take them all at once, like I do?
I learned how to take them all at once with no water.
I'm the same way.
Ah,
And the nurses in the hospital would always be shocked, like, "Wait, you took that
exactly.
many?"
And they always be ready with the bottle. And I'm like, nah, I'm good. And they were like big, like on the houses, they were like big pills too.
Right,
Um,
right.
so yeah, I just learned to take them. Um, and I can still do it without water. So yeah,
So, just out of curiosity, I know you mentioned you played Xbox with that friend of yours.
yeah.
Uh, have have you kind of used video game? Because I have, but I'm asking if you have used video games sort of as a social tool to help with your anxiety and your depression to make friends. Because I know
So
through
yeah,
video games, I've made some lifelong friends I probably wouldn't live without.
right, yeah. So the funny thing is, I actually wrote my Common App on this exact subject, right? Using video games as a method to kind of, you know, cope with what I'm going through, right? And
Right,
for me, the funny thing is it's not so much multiplayer games, it's single player games. Because single player games, you go on these grand adventures and you kind of um live with these flawed characters who are just like us, right? Going through their own set of problems and they got to figure out how to solve them. And video games help twofold. They because they were um they'd offered a method of a healthy escape for a while, right? But also the type of game, because I'm a huge fan of what you call a roguelike, to where it's a game to where you die over and over again,
Yeah,
right? At the end of each run. And it's a great teacher of perseverance and just working through your issues, right? At the time, I was really big into this game called Dead Cells, right? And Dead
right,
Cells is, exactly that. It's running through, a maze, a gauntlet, and you pick up weapons, you try to get stronger, but sometimes it gets hard, right? Sometimes it gets
right,
unbearable, and you get knocked down back to the start, right? But
right.
what separates the good players from the great players is that the good players would stop after a while. The great players would say, one more run, I can do it. One more run, I can do it. One more run, I can do it. And,
Exactly.
it's that kind of mentality that kind of teaches perseverance, right? Substitute the game for uh, Tom's on dialysis, right? Where, you just kind of have to go and go and, just one more day, just one more day of going
Right,
to dialysis, one more day of trying to manage your drinking, one more day of, staying healthy and eating what they tell you to, right? One more day. Because you know what? Tomorrow could be the day, right?
right.
Um, it,
We're not
it's
promised
like,
tomorrow. Nobody is, whether
yeah,
you're
we're not
one
promised
year
tomorrow, right?
old or a
Nobody
hundred
is,
years old.
right? And if I can go back to Bible real quick, um, I really like the passage, and it's mentioned several times, but how the Lord could come back one day like a thief in the night. He
Yep,
can come back. It could be tomorrow. And that's how, waiting for a kidney was, tomorrow could be the day to where I get this kidney and this will all be over. Tomorrow could be the day where the Lord blesses me and I can start my new life. Tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. So that was kind of the hope that I kind of learned through video games. Um, maybe I can beat this level tomorrow. Maybe I can get stronger tomorrow. Maybe I can, maybe this is the run where I can beat it, right? And yes, I did beat Dead Cells, and yes, I did beat this dialysis thing. So, um, yeah, I single player games are wonderful for me.
so I'm gonna have a couple questions in terms of advice you would give people, and it's gonna be like three questions,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
that's okay. So the first one's gonna be for people who are depressed in your situation, or prune belly who feels like the healing's never gonna come, it's never gonna get better, it's always gonna be this way. What would
yeah.
your advice to that type of person or that prune belly patient be?
Uh, hold on, hold on. Because tomorrow could be that day. Tomorrow can be that day where everything changes, right? Tomorrow can be that day to where, you get that good news. Tomorrow could be that day to where you get that call one day that, hey, we found someone for you. Tomorrow could be that day where they find that medicine that you need. Tomorrow could be that day to where, the Lord says, hey, it's going to be okay. So if you can just hold on for one more day, right? If you could just hold on and just continue to just keep doing what you're doing. Don't stop running the race, right? It may feel repetitive, it may feel tiring, but just remember that you're here for a reason. That you aren't here by accident. You aren't and you aren't alone either. I guess that's the second thing, right?
Right,
Um, Second thing is you're not alone, and when you feel alone, just remember there's probably someone in the exact same situation you are. Case in point, you and me, um, we went through the exact same things, right? And
right.
when I was younger, I didn't know that, right? I didn't know, other people went through this, right?
I I was actually told that I would never meet another prune belly patient ever in my life because of how rare it is.
Yeah, it's super rare, but it's not zero. It's never zero, right?
Right,
The likelihood is never, it's never 0%. There's always someone out there, that's struggling. And that's I think that's the key, right? Just remembering that, that we are not alone. The Bible says that, there's no sin uncommon to the common man. I'm totally paraphrasing, but you know what I'm talking about,
I
right?
know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
So yeah, it's like that, um all fall short, all everyone goes through this, right?
Right,
At some point. And if it's not prune belly, if it's not, kidney disease, it's cancer. Cancer is the same way, right? Where you have to go and, get treatment for that. And that could be soul sucking, that could be life sucking. And,
right.
people wait for that. So no matter what the diagnosis, you're never alone. People are, you know, we're people, right? And people go through things, and it nothing is ever uncommon.
Yeah, that's why my favorite scripture was always in I think it's in Philippians. I can't remember what chapter or verse.
Yeah.
But it's two verses and I'm paraphrasing here, but it goes somewhat like I know how to abound and I know how to have lost. I've been commanded by Jesus both to suffer and to abound, but I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Yeah. Everybody remembers that last part, but good on you for remembering the whole thing because I don't know the whole thing.
I don't
Um,
even know the whole thing. I was paraphrasing, but
yeah, but yeah, no, that's the key is just remembering that there are others, right?
right,
Um, and that's the worst thing, right, for any kidney patient, any Prader-Willi patient is to that feeling of loneliness, right? And loneliness gripped me for a long time because I have sisters, right?
all
Um,
right,
two sisters, completely normal, completely healthy. They got to do things like, go to play sports and hang out after school with friends, and they got to do all this normal
yep,
stuff. I had to be on dialysis, right? So there was no one really in my house that I could really, relate to, right? Of course, there are my
exactly,
parents that can, tell me, oh, it's going to be okay. But, I took that with a grain of salt because, like, yeah, they know as a parent, but they don't know. You know what I mean? They don't understand, right? They don't feel it, right? I had to feel that. They didn't have to feel that. And that was a common, thought I had that kept me isolated, that kept me lonely, was that, they don't have to feel this, but I have to feel this. Um, so yeah.
yeah. Now, how's your relationship with your sisters, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, we're siblings, so um we go through the usual, sibling stuff. Um, and I guess now that we're older, right, we're a lot more spread out. My older sister has her own place, so she's not living with us in the house anymore.
That is my older brother.
Yeah, and my younger sister, she is in Miami for
Oh,
school,
wow.
right? So, very, very, very far apart. Um, but when we were younger, you know, there was a point to where like we were really close knit because we're all 1 year apart. My older sister, 2000, I was born 2001. My younger sister was born 2002. So we were all born 1 year apart. And for a good few years, we were inseparable, We would do
Yeah,
things as three, right? Favorite memory of all of us together, we had a Wii growing up, right? And we used to play like Wii Sports and Mario Brothers and stuff. Um, but I guess the split was like right after that to where, you know, I kind of stuck with the video games because like video games were like really, really cool to me, right? But
yeah,
they kind of broke off from that, right? And what I started to see was that um growing up, my two sisters, they maintained their close-knit relationship, but I I was kind of left out, you
right.
know, just
Right.
due to like interest and circumstance at the time, and I just didn't have much in common with them as I grew older and grew up.
Yeah,
Um,
that's kind of how me and my siblings kind of went, except I feel like there's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for?
Animosity.
Jealousy.
Yeah, yeah,
A lot
and
of jealousy on both sides, my side and my sibling's side,
mhm.
because with my medical condition, I would get a lot of attention from my parents, and they would kind
Yeah,
of, I don't want to say push off my other siblings, but they would kind of focus on me because of how urgent some of my medical conditions were,
right.
and they kind of got pushed aside. So I feel like they have a little bit of jealousy with that. Just like
Yeah,
how I have jealousy on the sense that they can hang out with friends, they can go do what they want, they can work. And
yeah,
I'm kind of in a boat right now where I'm very limited on what I can do.
yeah. Um, I kind of have the same, and the other side of that, right? Is for my siblings, they felt like they couldn't be sad because of my
Yep,
situation. They felt like
same,
they couldn't be like depressed because I was going through this, great, terrible thing. Um,
exactly.
and they really couldn't express themselves. And on the flip side of that, I felt like I had to keep my issues in because you know my parents and my siblings, they didn't really understand what
Exactly.
dialysis was like. So every time I had a problem, I can only vent to them so much because
Exactly.
there came a point to where the encouragement and the advice kind of felt repetitive and the same, you know
Yep.
and there was really no solution that made sense to me in terms of like, this is what you do right now, this specific thing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I went to therapy, and the therapy was good, but the only good it did me was, getting it out there. There was
Yeah.
really um and the thing with therapy is that, as genuine as they are, they're doing it for a job, right? That
So-
they get paid to listen to people, right? Um So I kind of felt like, you're only listening to me because you have
I'm
to.
paying you all this money. Yeah.
Right, yeah. And so that's why even today I stopped going and I started praying a lot more. Um, because, Jesus understands like everything, right?
Yeah. And
And
today I would say my faith is so important. Not only am I in college now, I actually switched my major from history into biblical studies. So I'm going for a bachelor's in that now.
that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And if I may ask, are you on dialysis, or you said you never had to? I'm
No, no,
sorry.
no. I was lucky enough, well,
Yeah,
blessed enough to where I didn't need dialysis. I was able to get saved right before we got to that point,
yeah,
both times.
yeah,
There were talks of it, but it was like right before I started it, the kidney would come in, whether
yeah.
that be a donor, which was my first transplant, or my mother, which was my second.
Oh, so your mother was your second. That's cool. So my second was through like a swap kind of operation, to where so my dad would give a random donor his kidney, and then that kidney would go to me.
Yeah, I heard about that before.
Yeah. Yeah, so I that's how I got my second one. So I owe it to like my dad, because he went through the swap that allowed me to get the kidney that I have now. So yeah, I'm so blessed um
Amen.
to have a working kidney. I just My most recent appointment, my creatinine is down 1.1. So that's a really good number.
Yep.
My blood pressure is steady. My cell count is fine. My urine is clear. Everything is good, right? But I'm careful now to never take it for granted. To always thank God that, for my
Right.
situation now, 'cause, you know, it could always be worse, right? Um,
So, two questions.
Hmm.
What was one takeaway you got from everything you've been through, and what was a benefit you would say of everything you've been through?
Well, the takeaway is kind of the benefit, right?
Yeah,
Um, I think the one benefit I had was, um, it really showed me how good I have it in terms of like familial support, right? Um, because I can't lie, like even though they couldn't understand what I was going through, I could say that they were there for me in every way that they could. you know my father especially, because he would be the one that stay overnight in the hospital with me when I got sick, right?
yeah,
My mother, she took on the burden of understanding all the medical knowledge. She was the one, she's on the board at the hospital for kidney stuff, right?
wow,
So
that's amazing.
yeah, she took on the burden of, all the medical mumbo jumbo, right? My mom was there for me, understanding the medical stuff, but my dad was the one who treated me normally, like a kid. Um, so I was very blessed to have a support system, right?
Right,
Nurses too, right? Because the nurses were, so human, right? It's
right,
so common for, to grow up in hospitals to get used to like this cold, desensitized, medical demeanor to where like doctors just, spew
right.
medical stuff
Well,
at you without asking how you are emotionally. I was fortunate enough to get the best of both worlds.
the
Um,
the thing I want to add there is that you can definitely tell the doctors, nurses, or medical staff that are in it for the patients and the
yeah,
ones who are in it for the money.
right, exactly, right.
That is very, I mean, even to the people who don't think it's noticeable, believe me, the patients who are there every day really notice this.
They can sense it, yeah. And another benefit was this whole thing, it taught me two things. It taught me faith in God, what that really looks like. And
Right.
my favorite Bible story to this day, right, is the book of Job, right?
That's
Um,
the most misunderstood one for me.
yeah. Um, Job is my favorite because when I first heard about it, I heard about it in 2016, right? And
Right.
that's what got me through the process, is learning about what Job, and Job. It started because Job was a faithful man. He was a man of God. He prayed all the time. He read his Bible, but
Exactly.
then Satan was like, "Hey, God, that servant you have, Job, he's not as faithful as you think." And
You
God was
take
like,
all that stuff away, he'll
take
resent
all that
you.
stuff away and they'll turn on you, right? Um, and God was like, okay, well, let's see. So he took everything, took his house, took his wife, took his kids, took his health.
Right. And,
Uh,
and that's the part I never understood though, to be completely honest with you.
mhm.
Because the Bible said. So the thing I don't understand about Job is the fact that the Bible said he was a righteous man, and I understand you should rely on God and God alone, and that should be your faith. But I don't understand how he can take Job's health, his everything he owns, and his family. I understand that he replaced everything sevenfold, but I don't understand how you can replace a person.
Well, see, how I understand it is that God is all powerful, right? God can do all things, right? And
Right,
to some extent, you're right. You can't replace a person, right? But, and maybe this is simply just Bible theory here, but maybe um by replacing his wife, he gave him new children, a new wife, right?
right,
Maybe that's what God had in store. I don't quite really know the specifics of it because it doesn't really specify in
right,
detail what he
right.
replaced. But I do know that God will not take you to a place where he cannot protect you, um, or he cannot be there for you, right? I'm also
Right,
of the belief that God won't put you back into a situation that he just took you out of, right?
right.
So, you know, and that's what got me through. That's what's keeping me the faith up, right? Is that I have faith that God will not put me back on dialysis because I feel as though me and him have an understanding that, hey, this was a season, right? It
Right,
was a season, and that I am of the faith and the belief that God has way more to teach me off dialysis, right? Rather than back on it, right? Because
yeah,
notice how in Job's story, that whole thing never happens again, right? He
right.
re he replaced what he had tenfold, and that was it, right? So sometimes God uses circumstances one time to teach us, to speak to us, and to build us up, um, for our good, right? Because
Right,
all things, the Lord sets up all things for our good, right? He is for
right.
us, against us, right? So yeah, that's my takeaway from Job is that yes, his children did die, but perhaps he was given new children and a new chance to be a father and a husband.
Yeah. I, to be honest, I've never looked at it that way. That's really good. And I guess that makes sense in that song, if you heard it by Chris Tomlin, that
Yeah,
song "Whom Shall I Fear?"
yeah,
I absolutely love the chorus to that. And
yeah.
I hope I don't get taken down for this because I know it's copyrighted, but
Mm-hmm.
the my favorite part is where it says, "I know who goes before me, I know who stands
He stands behind
behind.
the God of
Yep,
angel
the God
armies. He's
who's
always
always
on
by
my
my
side.
side.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
one who reigns forever, he is a friend of mine.
Mhm.
The God of angel
The angel
armies is always
armies.
by my side." But
Exactly.
yeah,
I'm a Matt Marr fan myself. Matt Marr
no.
and Toby Mac. Those are my two favorite. Chris
Oh, I
Tomlin.
love Toby Mac.
Toby Mac was cool. Um, I don't know if he has new stuff out, but I have to check it out. I have to check it out. Um, but yeah, no. Job is absolutely my favorite.
All right, so I'm gonna be honest. My favorite story in the Bible, and this may just be because it's a hero villain type thing, and it's not even a hero villain, but it's more of a humanity type thing,
Hmm.
is the Davidic narratives with David. And I'm
Oh
not talking just David and Goliath. I'm talking about the entire Davidic narrative from where he is anointed king to where he kills the Goliath to where he runs from Saul to where he sleeps with Bathsheba, kills that soldier,
yeah.
and repents
My
ultimately.
favorite my favorite story is outside of Job is the story of Samson, right? Samson is a masterclass on redemption and God's grace and God's mercy. And how God can bless us with things and how even though we bless, we still find some way to sin and betray him. But even though God is still faithful, in the end, God returned um God returned Samson's strength to the point where he was able to bring down the temple. So
Right.
I really love that story.
Yeah, that's a really good story too. And I think the thing that uh sticks out to me the most about the Bible would be the entire actual story of the Bible of how God created us perfect. We
Hmm.
fell with Adam and Eve's sin of biting the apple, which rebelled against God.
Hmm.
And then after that, he sent prophet after prophet after prophet after prophet trying to get Israel back on the right track. And they wouldn't listen. So he ultimately sent his son to the world to save all of humanity if they
Right.
just believe in him.
Yeah, right
It,
now
it shows that, to me, it shows how God is willing to sacrifice himself, even for the most, what you would consider minute person. even though there's no
Right,
such thing as a minute
right.
person, but what you would consider that. Like, just think about who Jesus hung out with. He hung out
Yeah,
with thieves and liars and prostitutes, and it's
exactly.
just an amazing story. Looking at his
Right,
character, having him
right.
live the perfect life, and then die the sacrificial death.
One of the greatest love stories known to man.
Amen.
I'm actually in Ezekiel right now. I'm reading Ezekiel for the first time. Um, because a buddy of mine, his name is Ben, he put me on to because I'm trying to work myself up to read Revelation, right?
Oh, nice.
And so he told me if you're gonna read Revelation, you have to first read, I think it was Isaiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel, right? I've read Daniel and I've read Isaiah and I'm on Ezekiel right now. And maybe I'll take that leap and read Revelation afterwards. But the Bible's just so great. Um that I can go on forever about, the different stories. Another favorite of mine, Ecclesiastes. Um,
Right,
Ecclesiastes is my favorite, and I'm actually writing about it right now. Um, Part of what I do on the side is I write my story, right? I
right.
write different chapters of my story. I wrote um the whole dialysis part of my story. That's in a narrative account called Death and I. I'll send you that one as well.
Yeah,
Uh, where I kind of personified the character of Death, and the whole thing is kind of like a conversation while telling my story through the lens of what death is like. um Good Soldier is where I talk about my anxiety after dialysis and how um anxiety is like a huge weight, right?
right.
um in this new life I have, and I kind of liken it to well, I liken it to, and it really is PTSD, right?
Yep, I have severe PTSD with doctors.
Yeah. And how, soldiers go through PTSD. Well, this is my PTSD. This is what I have to, wrestle with and deal with from time to time. And so, yeah, no, it's stories like those. And then afterwards, I'm gonna take a page out of your book and, talk about my walk with Christ. And just talk about a whole lot of things that I go through. Um, but the main memoir, it's going to be a first volume because obviously I'm not dead yet, so I still have a lot to tell.
Right.
Um, and it's going to be the first volume, and it's going to be comprised of 6 stories, right? Each story is 10 pages each,
Oh, wow.
right? So um, I just have to track them all down and find them. Um, because I know I have the two, and yeah, I have 3 of them already written. Um, and so I'm on the last 3 right now, I believe. Yeah.
Nice. Now, with the stories you're writing, are you planning on eventually publishing them, or are you
Oh, of
doing that
course.
as a personal project?
I'm gonna publish it. I'm
Nice.
gonna publish it, make a profit, but most importantly, tell my story and the love of Jesus to the world, right? That I feel
Right.
like that's my purpose, right? To use my God-given talent of, creative writing to tell people about Jesus, to not necessarily preach to people, but just to, share my testimony and, hope and pray that, one day it brings someone closer to Jesus, or maybe it introduces somebody to Jesus. Um, one of
Right.
those, right? Because, you know, um, in John chapter 22, right? When he appears to Peter one last time before he goes up into heaven, go make fishers of men, go out and, tell people about me. And so, that's what I hope to do. Go
Right. The Great
out,
Commission.
right, yeah. And, this is my way of doing my part, you know? So, yeah,
Right.
that's what I hope to do.
That's the number one thing with me too, is if I could get just one person saved, that would mean the
Right.
world. Because I'm pretty sure it says in the Bible, and I'm paraphrasing here,
Yeah.
that heaven rejoices over just one sinner
One,
being saved. And it says that Jesus will leave the 99 behind to go find the one lost sheep.
yep. Yep. And if I may, I think this channel is a wonderful testament to that. What you're doing here, it's amazing. And I can already tell that you're going to bring so many people to Christ and to raise awareness about prune belly syndrome. It's a rare disease. Not everyone knows about it, but it's stuff like this that, it raises awareness. And maybe one day uh this could be a step to finding a cure or better treatment for
It's funny that, sorry, but it's funny that you mentioned that because I think it was about a year or two ago. I
Mhm.
actually interviewed a doctor on this channel, believe it or not, who
Nice.
delivered me.
Nice.
And he's been keeping up with the research on prune belly, and he's actually, I wouldn't say an expert on prune belly, but an expert on rare conditions or conditions that could affect the baby during pregnancy. And
Nice.
he told me that he believed, and again, this was a year or two ago, so people with the math, you can do the math on this just to figure out
Hmm.
how many years are left. But
Yeah.
back then, he said he believed that prune belly would be cured within the next 20 years with the way the research is going. I don't know
Yeah.
how accurate that is because I haven't talked to the network or the researchers, but I'm just delivering what the doctor told me and said on the channel.
Well, all we can do as believers is give it to God, you know. Um, Hopefully God has something in store for the people that suffer with prune brilliant. Matter of fact, I have faith. I know he has something in store, right? Um,
And it's going to be bigger than anyone could
it,
imagine.
it's going to be than the world could imagine, right?
Right.
Um, and so yeah, no, God is definitely thinking about those people, and I will pray for those people. I will continue to pray for those people, and I hope that you continue to raise awareness because you're doing such a good thing here, man.
Thank you so much. And it's funny because growing up, if you asked me what I wanted to be my entire life growing up, I would have said I want to be a doctor who specializes in prune belly, who opens my own hospital specializing in rare diseases and can have God be used by God to cure these rare diseases. Now, I would
That's
say that
awesome.
the goal in mind is still the same and I'm still chasing that goal,
Hmm.
but it kind of changed a little bit more to while I still want to do that, I kind of want to bring my religion and my faith in Christ into it a little more. And maybe instead of opening my own hospital, becoming like this major company that employs medical missionaries to
That's
help
awesome.
with this type of thing
That's awesome.
around the world.
I support that dream 100%. And I was thinking smaller when I was younger. I wanted to be a phlebotomist at one point. Um, because I dealt with that a lot as a kid, and I know this one dude I
Right,
still know today, Mr. Albert. He's been sticking me since I was a baby, and there was a point where I looked up to that guy and I wanted to be like just like him, just
right.
helping people, taking
That's how
people,
it was with my pastor.
yeah, just taking people's fears about needles and just easing it. But now, God told me that, what, I got something else,
Right.
Um, and I think my favorite Bible character, if I may, it's definitely Paul, right?
Really, what
Um,
makes you say Paul out of everybody?
'Cause like, yeah, you got Samson with the strength, you got, David with the courage, but Paul, he's the witness, right? He writes, right? He's a writer,
Right,
right? And Paul is what I want to be, writing about Christ and using your faith to, write about Christ and tell people about Christ, writing letters and, things like also his story from Saul, right?
right.
Paul's story is a story about redemption. He used to be like the worst of the worst,
He used to
killing,
kill Christians.
yeah, killing Christians for their faith and,
I mean, I think he killed thousands of Christians, and then he was on his way to Damascus to kill thousands of more Christians
right,
until Jesus appeared to him on the road and said, not Peter, Paul, why are you persecuting me? He never
yeah,
said, why are you persecuting my believers, my
yeah,
followers, my people? He said, why
right,
are you persecuting me?
right.
And
And
that's,
so,
I like thinking of that Christ sees, I don't want to say he's equal because it's never going to be equal, but
Right.
he kind of puts us on that level, on a level to where we can kind of try to be like him and attain, even though we're never going to be like him. You kind of get what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know if I'm explaining it well.
No, no, I completely understand you. I completely understand. But yeah, no, Paul I think is my favorite. Because I think he's the most grounded of the Bible characters, Somebody just,
Right,
just being a witness and writing about it, writing to the masses, writing to the world. And that's what I want to do. I want to write to the masses, write to the world about Jesus. And I don't and my pastor, he said something long ago that I'll never forget. He said, I don't want to teach people what to think. I just want to teach people to think, right?
right,
Just like, because it's not about, forcing it on people. It's just, being like Jesus and just causing people to just stop and just to think about, their lives. Because Jesus, he never forced anything on anybody, right? He was just there for people, right? And he healed
right,
people through faith. And I think that's the ultimate goal is just, not to force anything on anybody, but just to be there for people, to be there for our neighbors and our brothers and just to be, you know, just to be humans with one another.
right, right. I absolutely love your outlook and
Thank
your
you.
view. Very positive,
Thank you.
but um I, I definitely agree with you. I've never thought that way about Paul. You've definitely showed me a new perspective on that and on Job.
Thank you.
But I think it's absolutely amazing just hearing your story and everything you've been through. So
Happy to share.
also, I do want to apologize both to you and the audience. If you've seen me looking down as I'm talking, I'm not ignoring this person. I'm taking notes to know what questions to ask. So I just
Completely
want to put that out
understand,
there now. If
man.
you thought it was anything like that, it wasn't. It was
Yeah.
because sometimes I worry about that when I'm talking to people and I'm looking down writing.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't worry. I understand. I understand. You gotta be on top of things. You got a channel to run, man.
But it was awesome hearing your story. So just as a final question,
Hmm.
what, not even advice, but what would you say if somebody asked you what life was about and why people should continue on, or even why people should believe in Jesus?
Well,
Questions
um,
actually, but
yeah, why people should believe in Jesus, it all comes down to John 3:16, For God so loved the world that he sent his only son, um, so that we may not perish but have eternal life, right? Um, I think as a Christian, life is about, finding that relationship. It's really about that relationship with Christ. And I think what separates, the basic religion from Christianity is religion is like trying and trying and trying and trying and trying to do things yourself and just trying to be like just striving and failing to be enough. But, with Christ, you already know that you're not enough. You already know that, there's nothing you can do to make it to heaven, right? Getting to heaven is all about, having faith in Jesus, right? It's about accepting that he died for you. So, I guess the meaning of life is finding that truth, finding that, hey, no matter how much work, no matter how much you struggle, no matter how much you fight for things, right? It's not about you. It was never about you, right? This world is too big you know, to boil everything down to like what you want, right? It's about, finding Jesus, and once you find Jesus, you try to be better, you try to live better, you try to well again, it's not about trying, but it's about, living your faith, right?
that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it kind of
Right,
sounds like it comes down to having the humility to admit that I'm a sinner, I'm not good enough, there's nothing I can do.
right,
Jesus came
exactly.
into my life accept me as I am. I'll try to change. I'll try to be like you, and you can bring not for my redemption, but so I can bring your name glory.
Right. Exactly.
All right. So, would last question, would
Hmm.
you be willing to come back again if people ask for
Oh,
more of your story?
for sure. Absolutely. Um, this was such a wonderful experience. This was such a wonderful thing. This made my day, right?
Thank
I am so glad that I met you. I'm so glad that, I got to know about your mission. And, I'm so happy that, you have a platform to speak on something that matters. So to answer your question, I am 100% willing to come back, whatever you need. And I've got a lot more story to tell. I'm still alive. I'm only 23. That's not a full life. So,
Amen.
yeah, I got a lot more to share. I got a lot more to share. So, yeah, whatever you need, just hit me up, give me a call, shoot me a text, and yeah, I'll be there.
Thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed meeting you. I really enjoyed hearing your story. I think we're going to be really good friends moving forward.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And everybody, I want to thank you for joining in. If you liked Caleb's story, please like and subscribe. Comment. The more you comment, like, and subscribe, the more YouTube pushes out the video, and we can get more awareness out there. And with this video, hopefully, more eyes on Jesus as well. Thank you
Right.
for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for having me, Michael.
Thank you.
Oh, and before you go, may I ask,
Yeah.
so when is this gonna go? When is this gonna go up?
Uh, Not this weekend, next weekend.
Okay, because I'm gonna tell my family about this. I'm gonna
All right.
tell my family and friends what you're doing here, man.
All right. Thank you so much.
No problem, no problem.
All right. Bye.
Bye.